you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Indeed, I am surprised that since this is a debate not just about St Patrick's Day, but about Northern Ireland affairs, that I am the only member from Northern Ireland in the House to participate in this debate. I think that is a pretty poor situation. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just gently put to the member for Northampton two things. One, the member from Aberdeenshire is from Northern Ireland, so we've got to correct the words slightly when you say you're the only one. He's the only one from Northern Ireland. And a number of colleagues representing Northern Irish constituencies have sent apologies, had to go home to no doubt tend to their constituents. But I want to put on record that they did make that point.
Just before the member stands up, I know that the member Strangford right this minute is over at Westminster Hall. He's double booked himself, as the member would. So, Jim Allister.
I'm aware that the member for Strangford is in residence in his second home. I am, though, the only member representing a Northern Ireland constituency, if that satisfies the honourable member. Of course, St Patrick is a very important figure historically. No doubt, over the generations, he has been even more greened than he ever was. But I do find it a little rich in irony that, being a Brit, that St Patrick is celebrated with the enthusiasm by the Irish that he achieves. I think it is important, in talking about St Patrick, to recognise and remember that his primary contribution was in terms of bringing the Christian message, a message that fallen man needs reconciliation with God, and that can come only through the mediation of the Lord Jesus Christ. And that was his essential message to Ireland and elsewhere. It is also right, of course, that there are many intertwining relationships between the various parts of Ireland and the various parts of Great Britain. And one can think of some of the standout indications of that, not least in the currency of the Second World War, when the ports of Northern Ireland were so vital to the battle in the Atlantic, to defending our freedoms. And indeed, Northern Ireland welcomed the first American soldiers to be encamped, and they ran to many, many thousands in those years. And at the same time, sadly, the Republic of Ireland held to a strategy of non-involvement and of neutrality. And I think, therefore, it is always right to remember that in Great Britain's greatest hour of need, United Kingdom's greatest hour of need, it was in fact the people and country of Northern Ireland that came swiftest to their aid. And whereas in the Irish Republic, the government formally and quite shockingly expressed regrets at the death of Hitler, it was from within Northern Ireland that the contribution was made that the then Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, so generously recognised. Of course, the relationships are multifaceted. And it's easy to be cosy and sentimental about those relationships. And there's a place for that. But I do have to say to this House, there is also a dark side to the relationship. Because with the initiation and the conduct and the carrying forward of the brutal IRA terrorist campaign of the 1970s, 80s and 90s. The undoubted source for much of that was the aid and assistance given from the Republic of Ireland. The historical records show that the Provisional IRA was first armed by those associated with even government in the Irish Republic. And those are factors that I, representing constituents who lost family members at the hands of the IRA, cannot easily, nor should we, forget. We talk about cooperation, and cooperation is good, but it is also a salutary fact that at the peak of those terrorist campaigns, we did not have the cooperation we needed. Between 1969 and 1981, there were 81 extradition applications for wanted terrorists in respect of terrorist deeds committed in Northern Ireland. 81 applications to the Dublin authorities. Only one was granted. And of course, the truth was that many of the cross-border terrorist attacks were carried out from the Irish Republic. Amongst the most infamous, that of the greatest loss of military life, the attack at Warren Point, where the bomb that killed all those parachute and other regiment soldiers was triggered from the Irish Republic. And that was but a reflection of what happened time and time again. And yet, when cooperation was sought, it might have been nice words, but there was very little action, as indicated in the matter of extradition. So I think we do have to inject into the relationship and reflections upon it some of the cold realities that cost lives of British citizens in Northern Ireland. And I think that that is something which cannot be written out of our history. And indeed, debating Northern Ireland affairs, it is surely impossible, if we're to do it properly, to ignore the incredible constitutional situation that Northern Ireland is now in. Namely that, though I stand in what is called the Sovereign Parliament of the United Kingdom, there are 300 areas of law pertaining to Northern Ireland where neither this Parliament nor the devolved Parliament can make the laws, because those powers have been surrendered to a foreign parliament, that of the European Parliament, covering much of our economy. And in pursuit of that, we now have the obscenity of an Irish sea border, shortly to be, in a moment, shortly to be reinforced with even the insult of a parcels border, that a granny can't send our new grandchild in Northern Ireland a teddy bear without registering it through the processes of the Irish sea border. That businesses in my constituency, small engineering businesses or small craft industries that depend upon their supplies to come by parcels from their age-long suppliers in GB, that those parcels will now be subject to the demands of the foreign EU border, that those who send them must be a member at cost of the Trusted Trader Scheme. They must make a customs declaration. They must record what's moving, where it came from, where it's going. And yet this is said to be a United Kingdom. It's a United Kingdom, sadly, partitioned by a border in the Irish Sea. And the point I'm coming to is this, that much of that is at the behest of the authorities in the Irish Republic. It was the Taoiseach of the Irish Republic who pushed and cajoled and forced the EU into their irrational demands. The EU, at the beginning of the protocol negotiations, was prepared, indeed they originated the idea of mutual enforcement to control the movement of goods. But sadly it was the Taoiseach Varadkar who insisted, who saw the opportunity of partitioning the United Kingdom, who insisted on the border being pushed where the IRA could never push it in their 30 years of terror, insisted on it being pushed to the Irish Sea. It was the Dublin government that made those irrational demands and repudiated the very thing that made that unnecessary, namely mutual enforcement. So yes, lots of nice fuzzy sentiment about how the Irish Republic and the UK have relations, and in many areas they are good. But there is a reality that there has been a malevolence to the detriment of Northern Ireland as well. Yes, I'll give way.
I thank the honourable member for giving way, I may be getting on a bit now, but I don't recall some of the accusations that he's making about the role of the Irish government in terms of the negotiations that followed the Brexit vote. But what I wanted to ask him, to clarify for the purpose of the record, is it not the case that many unionist elected representatives, some of them in this chamber, encouraged their voters and their supporters to vote for Brexit in June 2016? Did they not?
They did, but they didn't get Brexit. That's the fundamental. The question on the ballot paper was, do you want the United Kingdom? It was not, do you want GB to leave and leave Northern Ireland behind? But that's what we got, because we were left in their single market under their customs code. And never forget, their customs code decrees GB a foreign or third country. Hence, its goods must pass through the EU border because Northern Ireland is treated as EU territory. That was not on my ballot paper. That was not what I voted for. But that's what the last government left us, and that's what this government seems reluctant, even though it's not what they brought about. That seems what they are unprepared to do anything about. So, yes, let's celebrate the international relations that you would expect between neighbours, but let's not get so bleary-eyed that we do not recognise the realities of the history and the legacy of the history. And speaking of legacy, you know, we talk about the wonderful relationship from the Irish Republic. Who is taking the United Kingdom to the European Court of Human Rights? The government of the Irish Republic, over a legacy act that this government isn't even pursuing. So I think that in any relationship, you look for a two-way cooperation, and you certainly don't look for trying to exploit a situation to achieve the dissembling of part of your neighbouring country. And that, sadly, is what has happened in respect of the Brexit negotiations.